It's always interesting to hear what the introduction will be like each year. I promise no Notre Dame jokes this evening. I hear it impacts our fundraising, so none tonight. But we have a Boston College graduate as part of our chair couple this evening, so I was reminded by some of my fellow Crusaders in the room to speak slowly and use small words. Kidding aside, I'd like to begin by thanking Jen and Tom Bransfield, our chair couple for this evening. We are incredibly grateful for the energy, enthusiasm, and leadership you brought to the gala tonight. You have been with us since the beginning. You have our continued gratitude for all you do to support our students and the mission at Christ the King. Thank you very much. I would also like to offer our gratitude to the wonderful Gala Committee that helps to make this a special event every year. Their talent and leadership are the driving force behind our success. They are listed in the program books that can be found at your tables. Please know that we are incredibly grateful for all you do to support our students at CTK. It's been a pleasure to work with you again this year. Thank you very much. And finally, on behalf of our board chair, Mike Jameson, Katie Olson, our school principal, Tara Sullivan, our corporate work study vice president, our entire faculty and staff, our students and their families, I'd like to thank you all for joining us tonight for our 16th annual King of Hearts Gala. Your presence here tonight, in support of our mission, in support of our young women and men, helped to make many amazing things possible. Thank you very much. Listen with your heart, and you will hear his voice. Ignatian spirituality is grounded in the conviction that God is active in our world. The spiritual path laid out by Ignatius helps us to discern God's presence and to seek God in all things. I didn't know Eddie well. In fact, I only met him after he was no longer a student at Christ the King. Our drum line was waiting to perform at the sports trivia night sponsored by the St. Giles Men's Group, and I was talking to several of the students participating. I asked Eddie a question about school, and after an uncomfortable pause, he shared that he no longer attended CTK, but he assured me that the principal said he could still be part of the band. The following Monday, I asked our principal at the time for more information, since this arrangement was not something we would typically allow. She shared more about Eddie's background. Both his parents were deceased. He had come to us through Mercy Home, a Catholic partner organization on the West Side that provides stability and structure to young people that have experienced trauma. Although CTK was not an academic fit for Eddie, she felt that the relationships he had developed at school were important to him and should be allowed to continue. In the ensuing weeks, I noticed Eddie hanging around CTK in the afternoons before dismissal. He'd be sitting on a bench near the front office, speaking with Miss Hatch. Other times, he would come by to visit one of his former teachers or the school counselors. And whenever he could, he would join the band as one of our drummers. The last time I saw Eddie, I was standing over his casket at the House of Branch Funeral Home along Roosevelt Road. He was laid out in a sharp-looking red suit. Eddie was 22. Standing there, I did not find God. I did not feel God's presence, nor did I hear God's voice. In the weeks and months to follow, I was continually drawn back to that moment, searching for God's graces. Months later, high in the mountains of northern Spain, I was hoping to hear God's voice, to feel his presence again. After finishing up 10 years of work at Christ the King last summer, the board generously provided me an opportunity for a retreat. I was able to leave the world behind for a couple weeks, backpacking a 175-mile stretch along the Camino de Santiago as a pilgrim with that theme: listen with your heart, and you will hear God's voice. A couple days into my journey, I arrived at La Cruz de Ferro, a small iron cross perched atop a weathered pole near the highest point on the Camino. Tradition has pilgrims bringing a rock or a stone to leave at the foot of the cross. The rock symbolizes the many things you would like to bring before God, that you're praying for as you walk. I left my rock just before sunrise. Listen with your heart, and you will hear his voice. Over the ensuing days, I had plenty of time for prayer and reflection, looking back at 10 years of memories from my time at Christ the King, thinking about individual students, Eddie included, recalling different moments spent laughing with faculty members or coaches, time spent cheering at athletic events, school prayer services, meetings, lots of meetings, pep rallies and graduations, moments etched in time. In prayerful reflection of these moments in the quiet solitude of the mountains, I was able to see more clearly where and how God is active and present at Christ the King, including that moment in front of the casket. The first student assembly I had at Christ the King, Daryl Hobson, our assistant principal at the time, stood before the student body and proclaimed loudly that we love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Listen with your heart and you will hear his voice. Although it's Daryl's voice that echoes in my head, God's presence is animated for our students when they are called by name, known, and loved. Now in my 11th year at Christ the King, this has been the one constant, this love for and commitment to our students. It is in these relationships that God is actively working. When Daryl stood before our students, he didn't add any qualifiers or conditions to that love. He didn't say, we love you only when you do well, or when you earn an A in my class, or score 20 points in a basketball game. He didn't tie it to college graduations or above average performance at a work-study job. Teenage years are hard. Navigating school, extracurriculars, sexuality, work, and relationships, all in the age of social media, is extremely difficult for young people today. Layer in the effects of poverty, housing instability, and persistent violence that impact many in our community, and that path toward future success is often muddled. For our students at CTK, success is not often linear. There will undoubtedly be a few speed bumps along the way. In the universal apostolic preferences of the Jesuits, we are called to accompany these young women and men, our students, as they navigate these challenging issues in the creation of a hope-filled future. And there is hope. I see it every single day at Christ the King. I see it in the joy on student faces when they proudly share their latest college acceptance. I hear it in Tekila's beautiful voice when she sings at our masses and prayer services, and which you heard earlier this evening. What a gift. It is present in the stories shared by our alumni at our gathering last weekend. Stories of new jobs, families, and young kids. It's hard to fathom that our first grads are 30 now, and we have a few of them sitting over here in the corner. It can be found in the laughter of students competing against Father Joshua in the jousting pit when we open the new courtyard behind the school. It can be seen anywhere teachers and students are gathered, in the academic center, the sound studio, the cafeteria, at Our Lady of Sorrows for the dignity breakfast we support, on the bus rides to and from corporate work-study jobs, and most importantly, in our beautiful chapel. There are so many great things happening at CTK. We are on pace for every one of our seniors to have a 4-year college acceptance again this year. Every student, every single year. Our boys basketball team is ranked in the top 10 in the state for 2A schools. Alumni are returning to work at the school, in the classroom, and in the work-study program. And we had our inaugural season of girls flag football. They finished second in the conference. This success does not happen in isolation. It results from the grit and determination of our students, supported by teachers and staff who deeply, deeply believe in the mission and in our students. Listen with your hearts, and you will hear his voice. I ask you to listen with your hearts. You will sense God's presence in this room tonight and in our work at 5088 West Jackson Boulevard. Open your hearts. Walk with us. Accompany our young women and men at Christ the King as they see, understand, and realize their full potential, creating a future full of hope and full of possibility. Thank you again for coming this evening and for all you do to support our students and the mission at Christ the King. Your generosity provides the resources needed for our students to flourish and grow academically, emotionally, and spiritually. And as always, we never ask you to give until it hurts. We only ask that you give until it feels good. Thank you, and God bless.